So we just finished Hanukkah, and now we're in these months of darkness. This is the only time during the year that we have a few months now where there's really nothing going on. It happens to be this is also a dark time. And Hanukkah is meant to light up the darkness. We're meant to take the light of Hanukkah and to bring it into our lives in a very real way. And lest we think we barely have any light in our life, comes the Hanukkah miracle to tell us it's enough light for your whole life, that little bit of light. Rabbi Nachman, on his way to Uman, nearing his deathbed, he told his students about Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai and the Zohar, and this became the introduction of Likutei Moharan. And obviously everybody wants to know what's the connection between this and Rabbi Nachman. Usually when you look at the introduction of a sefer, especially a Jewish book, it's all about the book, right? If you look at Mesilat Yesharim, the introduction is all going to be about the Ramchal and these teachings and what's the basis and what are we trying to get here. And in Rabbi Nachman's very enigmatic way, the introduction seems to have nothing to do with him. So there are some different answers on this. One of them is that Nachman ben Simcha is the same gematria as Shimon Bar Yochai. So he was alluding to the fact that he is Rabbi Shimon. Now, why does that matter for us? One is, we're very lucky to have a Rebbe like that, on the level of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, so Ashreinu. Two is, it's not in there, but it's something that I was thinking about today as I was thinking about the class and what to speak about. Rabbi Shimon told his students before he passed away that our thing, our zach, is hanging on love. This is Zohar. Our thing's dependent on love. And I think Rabbi Nachman was also telling his Hasidim that now that I'm going, you should know that our thing is hanging on love. The love that we have between each other, the brotherhood, the friendship. And I think I told you guys this last time. I told my friend about what it's like in Uman. And I was saying, you don't understand, because my friend's secular. He's like, in the religious world, I'm telling you, there's nothing like this. The brotherhood and the friendship and the love and the non-judgment. And he said, David, it's not just in the religious world. There's nothing like that in the secular world either, whatever you're describing, where people are just all there for each other and connected. And,
drugs.
Yeah, so there's nothing like that. Right, exactly. Well, it depends who you're hanging out with over there. But so this thing's dependent on love. Now, in this week's Parsha, we see Vayechi, right? This is the end of Sefer Bereshit. And Yaakov Avinu is gathering around his children. And Yaakov Avinu, Rabbi Nachman says, is the Bechina of the Tzaddik Emet. And his children are like all of the Jewish people, all of the stones of Israel, that they're coming to come under the head of the Tzaddik. Like Yaakov Avinu is falling asleep on all of these stones and they become one stone under him. So too, he's gathering the Jewish people and he's telling them, he wants to tell them at the end of days, Rashi says. He wants to tell them about the coming of Mashiach. But then Hashem took away his Ruach HaKodesh and he took away his understanding. And he wasn't able to tell them about Mashiach. He wasn't able to tell them about Geula. Rav Natan says an amazing thing. Rav Natan, who we just celebrated his Hilula, the day he was Niftar, in Tevet, on the fast day of Tevet, 10th of Tevet. Rav Natan left us, but he left us with a lot. One of the things he left us was Likutei Halachot, this unbelievable masterpiece. There is no sefer like this, where he took the entire Shulchan Aruch and he explained every teaching in there, every law, Jewish law, which we usually, when people come to it, especially if you don't grow up religious, maybe even if you do, but when you think of Jewish law, you're not itching at the fingertips to get into it. You know what I mean? Oh man, do you know what happens when you have a tanit? When you have a fast day? Oh man, you got to figure out what you got to do, what you can't do, what you're not allowed to do, right? You're not usually saying that to your friend. You're like, yo, bro, you got to see this Likutei Moharan lesson. It's crazy. Something different, right? Rav Natan took all of the Shulchan Aruch and he explained all of those laws according to the teachings of Rabbi Nachman and Likutei Moharan. In one section, he's speaking about Ta'anit. And he says over there that even though Yaakov Avinu seemingly was not able to tell his children how the Geula was going to take place, he actually did tell them how it was going to take place by telling them to gather around. You ever hear that Beatles song? Come together right now. So Yaakov Avinu was actually the first one to say that. It wasn't Paul McCartney. Okay? Also without drugs. He said, come together. Mamish, that's the pasuk. It's not even Rashi. It's not even a midrash. He says, come together, right? This is the whole Geula. That the tzaddik is telling us we have to come together. You want to have the light of Hanukkah, that's great. You might even know exactly where it is. But if you want to be a keli, a vessel, to hold the light and have it change your life, then you can't do it alone. You got to come together. So Baruch Hashem, we're together, and we're able to connect again to the tzaddik, visit Hashem, his friends, his brothers. Hopefully everyone tonight is going to hear exactly what they need to hear to draw closer to Hashem. That's what I prayed for before I came. I hope that's the case for each of you. If not, don't tell me. I don't want to know. Go home disappointed.
Turkey Prince.
Right. You already got what you needed. Let me just take a quick swig of this water vodka, whatever this thing is. Okay. Feeling better now. And first of all, I was just thinking to myself as we were singing Ashreinu, the gematria of Ashreinu. You guys like gematrias, right? Okay. So it's 567 if I did the math right. If you take the gematria Mashiach ben Yosef, you add the kolel, it's the same gematria. Mashiach ben Yosef, Ashreinu, Ashreinu. I was reading in the Pri Eitz Chaim, thank God I had the schut. Because of the great eitzes of the Rebbe, even though I'm obviously not in a place to be able to do such a thing, he says you should learn these things. Not to practice these things, but you should learn them. So, as Rav Chaim Vital is explaining the Arizal's teachings on the Amidah, he's speaking about Bonei Yerushalayim. And there's, if you look in Sephardic Sidorim, you can actually see it. Maybe it's also Nusach Sfard, I'm not sure, but I pray from a Sephardi Sidor, don't ask me why. And it says there that you should machavin to Mashiach ben Yosef, that he shouldn't die.
Yeah.
Yeah. You love Sephardi Sidorim. You're like, why are they all like this? That Armalus shouldn't kill him. So this is actually comes from the Arizal. It comes from the Pri Eitz Chaim. It comes from this teaching. Now this I didn't see because I had heard that before. But the Arizal's Chidush is that there's a Gemara in Masechet Sukkah. It says that Mashiach ben Yosef is going to die. And then Mashiach ben David is going to come and pray for his revival. Okay? Now the Arizal though says, not anymore. He doesn't have to die anymore. Okay? So that was all I knew. Meaning like the Arizal did something, he snapped his fingers, right? Did some type of kavana. Now Mashiach ben Yosef doesn't have to die. Okay? And he says, Badavka, that his Talmidim, the Arizal told his students that they should mechavin during Bonei Yerushalayim, that the Mashiach ben Yosef shouldn't die, and that he, the Arizal, shouldn't die. And it was very, not such a implicit allusion to the fact that he held that he was the Mashiach ben Yosef, right? So make sure that I don't die. However, in the writings that I was reading today, which was amazing, I never saw this before or heard of it, he didn't mean that he doesn't physically die. He does physically die, like the Gemara says, and this is maybe the way that you reconcile the whole thing. But that Mashiach ben Yosef reincarnates in every generation. And in that sense, he doesn't have to die because he's always living. He continues to come back and to do what he needs to do. Or like Rabbi Nachman says, I have finished and I will finish. So if we track the whole line down from the Arizal to Rabbi Shimon to Rabbi Nachman, Ashreinu, maybe we're talking all about one person. And how lucky and fortunate we are that we have connected to this figure who makes us say, Ashreinu, how fortunate we are. Sat Hashem. A lot of you guys know some of my story. I'm going to spare you of it today. But I was just thinking recently in my Hibodadut, like how my whole life, from like the moment I get up in the morning till I go to sleep at night, it's all Rabbi Nachman. And it's an amazing thing, you know, whether that's getting up for Chatzot, or whether that's praying Nates, or whether that's talking to Hashem in his Bodadus, whether that's learning his Torah, whether that's searching for Nekuda Tovas in myself and others, whether that's machaziking my friends in Sichot Averim, or they're machaziking me, like from even till I went to sleep tonight, that I had my kids, and my daughter, my 6-year-old daughter, was asking me, Abba, can you tell me the lost princess? I've been telling her this story since she was born. I actually once asked some of my students, tell me the one thing in the world that a grandfather, a father, and a child can all get equally excited about. That actually equally excited, not like we're pretending, but like we're all actually equally pumped up about this thing. I don't think there's anything like that, except for Sipori Masya. This story is just as interesting as it is to an 80-year-old, as it is to a 50-year-old, as it is to my 6-year-old or 4-year-old. So I have my 4-year-old daughter, my 6-year-old daughter, and my 7-year-old son, all sitting right next to each other, and I'm telling this story for the millionth time, thank God, to them. I'm telling them about this Mishneh LaMelech, the second to the king. It's towards the end of the story now. I try to make the story break out to the night. Yeah, I used to tell the whole story at night and be there for an hour and a half telling them this whole story. And then I started to break it down and really try to egg it out, So I'm towards the end now, and I'm telling them about the Mishneh LaMelech who's going through the deserts. He's looking for the lost princess in the Golden Mountain and the Pearl Castle. He finds these giants. And the giants say, tipesh, you fool. And my kids love that. Oh, you idiot. Yes. There's no Golden Mountain in Pearl Castle. And he's going from the giant who's in control of all the animals. The animals have no idea where he is or where the princess is. Goes to the next giant because he's so akshan, he's so stubborn. He finds the giant who's in control of all the birds. The birds also don't know where he is. And then all of a sudden goes to the last giant. And the last giant's in control of all the ruchot, all of the winds. They also don't know where he is. Until one ruach comes at the end. And that ruach says, I know where she is. How? Because I just took her there. I had a chidush as I was telling them this story for the 1,000th time. There's a Torah, a Hanukkah Torah, from 1802. It was the first Hanukkah of Rav Natan by Rabbeinu. It's the 8th lesson in Likutei Moharan. And there was a big machloket taking place in Emerav. It doesn't take much of a relationship with Rabbi Nachman before people start giving you a hard time. So Rav Natan's chevra in Emerav, just after a few months of being by him since Rosh Hashanah, maybe half a year, they're giving them a lot of problems, one person specifically. And they were telling Rabbi Nachman about how this person's giving them all this lachatz about being close to Rabbeinu, being close to the Rebbe. Rabbi Nachman told them this whole lesson, which I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but I'm going to talk about a piece of it. And he told them, if they ask you what you found in Breslov, tell them, Ruach. Ruach. I had a rabbi in Queens. He took over the yeshiva that I was at, and he saw very quickly that 2 of, let's say, the 4 or 6 people who came consistently were me and my friend who loved and were actively involved in Breslov Chassidus. And so, when you're by Litbox, depending on who the crowd is, I either hide that thing, doesn't exist, or if I'm with the right group of people, I bring out the garb and I start talking about Likutei Moharan. So thank God this is one of those situations where he sees these 2 Breslover Hasidim and he starts to tell me a little bit about his Breslov fascination. And when he was in yeshiva growing up, he said that when Purim came, he so wanted to be by Rav Yaakov Meir Shechter and just see what it's like to be Purim by a Breslover. So he ditched his yeshiva. And he went on, and then this is a person who, if you see him, it doesn't sound like the story. It's he's like a real Rosh Yeshiva, whatever, but it's Sephardi. But he went over, and he said that I'll never forget this. I still remember it to this day. I'm in this room with all of these Hasidim, and he said Rav Yaakov Meir Shechter is sitting at the front, and he says he's drunk out of his mind, plastered. And he's sitting there on his chair, and he's saying to the Hasidim, what is the strongest thing in the world? What is the only thing in the world that cannot be stopped? Nothing can stop this thing. It is the strongest thing in the whole world. And he's shaking his chair and he's going back and forth. And his eyes are bulging out of his head and everyone's waiting to hear. And he goes, Ruach! Ruach! What's the strongest thing in the world? Ruach! What was he speaking about? Rabbi Nachman said, if they ask you what you found in Breslov, tell them the only thing that can't be stopped. Ruach. And I was telling my kids this story. Who took the princess to the Golden Mountain and the Pearl Castle? Ruach. I was thinking about our life, and usually when we think of this story, we think about like one lifetime. But it seems like from the years of this story, could have been many lifetimes. And I know, like for me, I'm thinking about my life journey. Oh my gosh, it was like so hard to find the Rebbe. So hard to even find the Torah, right? And just how long am I going to be holding on like this? You know, when are things going to change? When's my life going to change? When are things going to get better? You know, it's such a long journey. And I'm thinking to myself, you know, what if we're at the end of this story? You know, what if we've already been here many times before? And we already went through the Armon, the castle, with the evil king, and we came back again. And we found that first giant, and he said there's no such thing. And we come back again. And we're hit with the same bad news, there's no such thing, but we don't give up, and Hashem brings us back again. And finally, we're at the end. And this Ruach comes and says, I know where she is, and takes us there. Rav Natan's main message to us is to go and hold on to the Rebbe. No matter what you do, no matter what happens to you in your life, no matter what you've been through, no matter what you're going through, just do one thing, hold on to the Rebbe. Or as he told Rav Nachman of Tulchin, his main chassid, as he was on his deathbed, he told him the pasuk from last week's parsha, go to Yosef, and whatever he tells you, do, like Paro said. Whatever he tells you, do. This was the main advice of Rav Natan. Now, why is this so life-changing? Why could this be so life-changing? So Rabbi Nachman says like this. We're all filled with chesronot. We all have lackings. Some of us lack self-esteem. Some of us lack parnasa. Some of us lack a girlfriend or a wife. Some of us lack health. Right? Every one of us has lackings. It's what makes us human. Rabbi Nachman says that all of these chesronot are filled primarily through one mechanism. Ruach. Think about it. Every single time that you're stressed out, what do? If you're Jewish?
Sorry.
My son started doing it recently. My wife was worried about him. I was like, no, this is the holiest thing ever. The krechs. Rabbi Nachman says you have no idea how precious the krechs is. Why? Because you draw a new breath. Rabbi Nachman explains there that the world is going to be recreated not so soon. And it's going to be recreated the same way the world was originally created. How was it originally created? Ruach. Hashem breathed the world into existence. Hashem breathed Adam's life into existence. And we know the Gemara that says that every Jew, every person is an Olam Katan. He's a small world. So why are we learning about Bereshit? Why are we learning about the beginning of creation? Who cares? The answer is you are that beginning of creation. You could be. And just like Adam Arishon was first created, but he was lifeless until Hashem blew Ruach into him. So too, you could be alive and not be living. You know, like when I was in Queens, I remember I had like an amazing session of Hippolytus. And I felt so good after, like just alive. And before that, I mamish felt dead and terrible. And I texted my chavruta, who I got on the whole Hippolytus bandwagon. And I said to him, because he's been religious his whole life, and he grew up Haredi, and I said to him, how do people live without Hippolytus? I'm not asking because I'm trying to be like a Breslover and be controversial and trying to make a point. I'm actually asking, I don't know how you live with bills to pay and kids and a wife and stress and struggles and all these things. How do you not have this time every day? where you just let it all go and you let Hashem into your life in such a deep, profound way? How do you live? And he's Sephardic and he's Moroccan, so he's very straight and he says very small words, but he gets straight to the point. And he said to me, it's very simple. They're not living. They're not living. There's a reality where you could be alive and have no life. There's a reality where Adam can be created and yet he has no ruach. There's no life force. Rabbi Nachman was saying, what am I to you? What could I be to you? Just like when you breathe in and you get physical life from that, and if you were to stop, you would cease living. So too, he says, I could be your spiritual life. And guess what gives birth to your physical life? It's your spiritual life. Imagine someone coming to you and saying, I want you to stop breathing. I would enjoy if you stopped breathing. How easy would you give up? How easy would you go down? How easy would you say, you know what, you're right. I'm kind of annoying. I think the world would be better off without me. I'll give up on breathing. You would mamish fight till your very last breath. It's the last thing. You would never give it up. Ever. Rabbi Nachman says, if you treated me the same way, if I was spiritual oxygen for you, I mean I am, but if you knew that, the same way that you know that you need physical air, I could give you that same life. And this is what Rabbi Nachman was telling his Hasidim. Breathe me in. Let me be your breath. Know that I can be this for you. Because Rabbi Nachman, like he often does, he explains very poignantly, you don't have a choice about whether or not you're drawing in your life force from somewhere. You have to be getting it from somewhere. Either you're getting it from the blunt that you smoked before you came to this thing. Why are you laughing? How come you never laughed at any of my jokes before that one? It's getting me nervous about you. Or you're getting your ruach from the food that we're eating. You're getting your life force from the food that we're eating. Or you're getting your ruach from some hip-hop artist that like you think is really cool and has great jewelry, right? You are getting your ruach from somewhere. Rabbi Nachman says, you choose. The Torah says, choose life. Question is obvious. Why does the Torah have to tell you to choose life? Who would ever choose the opposite? It needs the Torah to tell you things that you already know. It has to be a chidush, right? You learn a Mishnah, you learn a Gemara, it's never going to tell you the same thing. If you see something that seemingly is unnecessary, it's because you haven't really understood it properly. So what is the Torah coming to teach you? Choose life. The answer is because you can choose to actually draw in something which kills you. It doesn't have to be a physical death. Rabbi Nachman says sadness is a bechina of death. Anybody who has ever been sad knows it feels mamish like death, right? You could choose to be alive. So where are you getting your ruach from? So Rabbi Nachman says you have to be getting it from a rav, right? It says, Selecha rav, make yourself a rav, okay? So that's the person thinks to himself, I don't have a rav. Rabbi Nachman is not true. You have a rav. Who's your rav? So you have two choices. You could either choose the rav of the generation, you can choose the tzaddik ador, in which case you get the ruach that's marchefet al pnei hamayim, that's hovering over the water, which Chazal explained means the ruach Mashiach. It's pretty good ruach. Or you can be getting it from Esav. Why? Because when Esav saw Yaakov, after their lives separate, and you know it's like those two brothers or those two friends, they go two different ways. One of them goes after this life, the other one goes after this life, and they can't wait till they finally meet, and I could show them, this is what I did with my life. This is what happened to me. Guys, if you weren't such a schmazel, you could have came along with me and done the same thing. Instead, you went with your friends and you did your thing. Same thing with Yaakov and Esav. They're coming. Yaakov spends his whole life trying to connect to Hashem, trying to help others do the same, choosing spirituality over physicality. And you have Esav. He loves hunting, he loves women, he loves money, he loves physicality, and he's amassed tremendous wealth in every way, and they're coming to meet each other. And Esav says to Yaakov, guess what? You think you're so holy. Yesh li rav. which simple meaning is I have a lot. Yesh li rav, there's a lot to me. Rabbi Nachman says, no, he was saying something more than that. He's saying, Yesh li rav, I'm a rabbi. Yesh li rav. What do you mean I'm a rabbi? Who has Rabbi Esav? Did you know anybody who's got Rabbi Esav? Rabbi Nachman says, anybody who's not attached to the tzaddik emet. Anybody who's not attached to the tzaddik of the generation, automatically, he's getting his ruach from Yesh li rav, Esav. What's the problem with this? He's the one who creates all your chesronot, all that feeling of lacking. Instead of filling you with something that makes you feel whole, he fills you up with things that make you feel mamish empty. Right? Like I remember when I was in college, I went to Penn State. Woohoo to the Nittany Lions, if anybody went there. Okay, my allegiance is with you, obviously. This was before I even knew about the Torah. I knew about tefillin, I knew about Shabbat. I didn't know about any of these things then. Not that I would have chosen in college, but I'm just saying I didn't know about it. And I remember, I joined the school, and I'm thinking to myself, what would be the best use of my time while I'm here? And I'm going from apartment to apartment. I'm like, yeah, this is pretty lame. I heard college was supposed to be fun. And then all of a sudden they tell me about fraternity life. And all of a sudden I go to a fraternity party, and I see a bunch of very, very, very unusually fit men chest bumping and broing out with each other. And seemingly having a great time. Really excited, like can't wait for the night. And there's bottles of alcohol out, and there's women there, and it's like, wow, this is gavaldic, this is amazing. So I spent the whole entire semester, mamish, getting beaten and killed to join this fraternity. Almost after the first week, everybody wanted to quit, except for me and this one person. Thank God I've used that akshanut for something holy after that. But I remember once I finally got in, and I'm like, wow, this is going to be amazing. This is going to be so great. And I'm going from party to party every night. And I never said this to anybody, but I couldn't help but thinking to myself how empty I felt after every night. And no matter how much alcohol I poured down my throat, no matter how many activities that were not healthy for me that I was engaging in at these places, I was really secretly feeling to myself, my gosh, this is a very small room to have so many people in. And everyone is sweating profusely right on top of me. I'm like, I hate this. And yet, you know what? I'm thinking to myself while I'm there, maybe there's an even better party than this. Maybe there's an even better party than this. They call this FOMO, right? Fear of missing out. Really, my rabbi's Esav. So what's happening? I'm drawing my life force from Esav, and so what happens is I have a bigger hole. I have to go fill this hole with more. That's what I mean, Yesh li rav, I have a lot. What does Yaakov say back to him? Nebuch, if you would have connected yourself to me, you'd have kol, you'd have everything. That's an amazing thing. Yaakov said he had everything. What do you mean you have everything? How could you even say you have everything? Let's say you had 1,000,000 things, but you can't say you have everything. And I'm not even sure Yaakov had more than Esav. So what do you mean I have kol, I have everything? First of all, in Kabbalah, they explain that kol is a code word for the yesod. The yesod is the tzaddik, meaning, I am the tzaddik. So guess what? I have everything. So the tzaddik lives with his emunah. What was Yaakov telling Esav? Because I believe in Hashem, because I know that everything that happens in this world is nothing other than the ratzon of Hashem. That a leaf doesn't turn, like the Baal Shem Tov said, unless Hashem wants it to. So you know what happens when things don't go my way? I'm still good. You know why? Because Hashem's running the world and I'm not. And then what? I have kol, I have everything. It's all good. Right? I wanted to marry this girl. I ended up marrying somebody else. But you know what? Hashem runs my life. It's okay. He has better plans. Guess who ended up coming from that union? Yehuda. Guess who came from Yehuda? Peretz. Guess who comes from Peretz? David. Guess who comes from David? Mashiach. Imagine if Yaakov would have gotten what he wanted. We wouldn't have Mashiach. Chava. I'm sure he would be the one who would be most disappointed. Yaakov said, guess what? No matter how much you amass, it doesn't make a difference. It's always going to be only a lot. But you know what happens when you have a lot? You're always missing something. Even if you have a lot. But let's say you have coal. Let's say you have everything. Then no matter what you have everything you need. This is what Rabbi Nachman was telling his Hasidim. And this is what Rabbi Nachman is offering each and every one of us. If you choose, remember, you have to choose, because there's no parv here. There's no parv. You could say you have a Rav, you don't have a Rav, you have a Rav. You could say you have a Melech, you don't have a Melech, you have a Melech. Your Melech is either here, or your Melech is in between your legs. Everyone is being ruled by something. You get to choose. The Torah is saying choose life. Choose well. Rabbi Nachman says, what's the best choice you can make? So he says it much sharper than me. He says that anybody who's not attached to the true tzaddik is like a monkey. Why is it like a monkey? Because a monkey can do everything a person can do, except he's not a person. So listen, if you don't choose to live a life of Kedusha, and you don't choose to live a life of Tahar, you don't choose to live a life where you're connected to tzaddikim, things may or may not be going well. But at the end of your life, you don't know, was this real or not? Or was I mimicking a person? I know for me, sometimes I have really, really rough days. Sometimes my days are really painful. Sometimes my days are really good. Sometimes things are going great, they're going swimmingly. Sometimes they're not. But I know one thing for sure, is I'm not copying anyone. And I'm not mimicking anything. And at the end of my life, however it goes, and however it turns out, and whether it will be successful or seemingly not, I will be able to know that I lived an actual life. I had real life. Because I was connected to the tzaddik. What is it that makes the tzaddik connected to real life? Why can't I just do it on my own? What do I need him for? So again, we have to learn from the beginning of creation. Where do we see Ruach? When's the first Ruach in the Torah? It's hovering over the water. And we know that Chazal explained there's no water besides Torah. Okay. Rabbi Nachman explains that the tzaddik has devekus with the Torah all the time, 24/7. Everything that he's doing, it's just Torah. Even Rabbi Nachman, if you look at his sichot, his conversations that he had with everybody, it was just Torah. No matter what he was talking about, it seemed like it was something else, it was Torah. Everything in his life was Torah. Okay, if you can't look in the mirror and say to yourself, I, David, 100% all the time, am totally immersed in this ocean called Torah. Can anyone say it? No. It's fine. It's okay. Okay? That's fine. However, where's the Ruach of life? It's hovering over the water. So if you want to feel alive, not just be alive, you need to be drawing life from the Ruach which is hovering over the water. And the tzaddik is holding on to this Ruach because he's mamish attached to the Torah. And like the Zohar says that the Torah and Hashem are one. It's all one. Bezat Hashem, I give all of us a bracha that we should take these next few months where we don't have to go do another Chag. You don't have to prepare for anything now. There's nothing to do except for look at yourself in the mirror and say, I want to start over again. I want to renew. I want to mamish be a new person. I want to start a new life. I want to start over again. How do I start over again? Rabbi Nachman says, how did Hashem start the world over again? With Ruach. With Ruach. Choose to draw in the Ruach of the Tzaddik. Now, how do we do that? Very, very, very simple. Take a time every day, you learn his teachings. Okay? Number one. Number two, try your very best to follow his most vital advice. By Rabbi Nachman, Rav Natan says this. I don't know anything. I'm just telling you what Rabbi Nachman said. Remember Rav Natan said? Rav Natan said he had 3 most vital pieces of advice. One of them is hitbodedut every day. Okay? So let's say, for instance, I know today's shot. I have this meeting, and my family's asking me for this thing, and I'm not going to have time to do anything. I have this much time. What should I do with it? Rav Natan says, Rabbi Nachman wants you to do Hitbodedut. Okay? Good. So in that time that I do that, even if I only did that, I was attached to the tzaddik today, and I'm drawing in his ruach. 2, let's say you got a little bit more time than that. Rav Natan said, Rabbeinu told us that we need to have a time every day that we learn Shulchan Aruch. There's many Torahs in the Likutei Moharan that explain why. Obviously on the most simple level, so you know what you're doing, but there's many more levels to this, and this comes with mevataling oneself to someone who knows much more than me, that this tzaddik who created these Torah lessons that mamish blow my mind, that take you from the one end of existence to the other, that literally help you explore the deepest recesses of your own soul. He says you only have a few minutes, learn the Shulchan Aruch. Just assume that that person knows what he's talking about. Okay? Lastly, Rav Natan said to go to Uman for Rosh Hashanah. These are the 3. Okay? So, thank God, this one, at the end, you have to gather up the courage and the resources once a year. So we really only have to deal with 2. How do I make sure that every day I have Ruach? Spodadus, Shulchan Aruch. And it would be really, really good to have a time that you learn Rabbi Nachman's teachings, at least a little bit every day. And I give you the blessing, Bezrat Hashem, through my love for you. It's the only person who loves can bless. Our love that we have together, the brotherhood that we have together. I tell this to people all the time. I have all these different eitzes, and I have all these different things I could be doing, right? Like mom is mitchering me to death about how mikveh comes first. I said, okay, but I see a lot of people who they're blazing every day and they go to the mikveh and they don't do anything else. Okay. I see a lot of things all the time, right? A person says Talmud Torah. I've seen a lot of people who mamish put their heart and soul into learning and they burnt out completely and they're barely wearing a kippah. I know one thing for sure. If you have Hisbodedus every day, Rabbi Nachman promises you, it is the foundation on which you can build your whole Avodat Hashem. It's the foundation on which you can build your whole life. And I can tell you, just for me personally, the difference between me being in a psych ward and me having a good life and being happy on a daily basis is that hour of Hisbodedut every day. And I'm not being extreme, I'm being very, very honest with you. It's that drastic of a difference. Okay? If you start with Hisbodedut, you will see, like someone said, what should I learn? Should I learn Musar or should I learn Gemara? Right? You know this famous story they tell you in yeshiva all the time. Should I learn Gemara or should I learn Musar? So they asked, like the greatest Talmid Chacham of the generation, what should I do? And obviously he thought he was going to say, you should learn Gemara. Obviously this is like the master of Gemara in the world. He told him you should learn Musar. He said, why? He said, because if you take a little bit of time every day to learn Musar, you'll realize you'll have more time to learn Gemara as well. Okay? Same too here. Every Jew is, we have a lot of things that are distracting us, and we have a lot of things that seem important that are maybe not so important. We have a lot of things that are actually important that maybe don't seem so important. Rabbi Nachman says, if you spend the time alone every day with Hashem and you talk from your heart, you will mamish realize what's important to you, and you'll want to invest time in that thing. And if you don't, you'll have no barrier, you'll have no safeguard, you'll have no measure for keeping you on the path that you want to go on. But through Hisbodedus, you can build everything off this thing. Bezrat Hashem, we should take these months of darkness and fill them up with Hisbodedus. And Bezrat Hashem, through that Hisbodedus, you should see that you also have time to learn the Torah of the Rebbe. And when you hear the Torah of the Rebbe, Bezrat Hashem, I hope that it illuminates you and enlivens you to also want to keep the other eitzes. And just remember, every eitzah, every Torah, every sichot averim that you do, your mom is drawing in new life that can totally renew and recreate your whole world. Ruach. Thanks, guys.